Welcome to everybody. We have a special guest in the house that I don't see at our meetings very often. Welcome, Municipal Judge Eddie Trujillo. Welcome. Roll call, please.
Mayor Louis Trujillo,
Present.
Councilor David Romero,
Here.
Councilor Elaine Rodriguez,
Present.
Councilor Michael Montoya, Councilor David Ulivari Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a quorum.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take a moment of silence just to thank the police officers in our community for all the hard work, for running into danger a lot of times, while to keep our citizens safe, to help with fighting crime and keeping our household safe and keeping our public safe. I'd like to thank him for all the work they do with traffic control and public safety. And I definitely would like to thank all the officers here today for all the work and dedication to our community and to keeping our community safe. You just take a moment of silence and recognition and thanksgiving for the police officers. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Romero?
I have a quick question to Cassandra and to Scott. On the agenda, we have executive first and then the business item. And I was wondering, could we skip, because I'd like to see if we could discuss some of this in open, or start the discussion if we need to go into executive at that time, can we? Instead of going to that one item of executive and then?
I believe you can go into
Is all we-
executive at any time. I just placed it there in case you wanted to go into executive prior to the business item. I don't know what city attorney's thoughts are.
I don't have any problem with that. What she
How
said.
the rest of the council feels, I mean,
I'd rather it be in open
okay.
as much as possible.
Yes, I agree.
And if we do need to at that time, we could just call for the motion for executive, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
There's a motion on the floor by Councilman Romero to approve the agenda. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Romero,
Yes.
Councilor Ulivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, second by Councilor Ulivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
We have no public input this evening or this afternoon. So moving on to, we don't have a need for executive session at this time. We will move on to the business items. Business item 1, request approval to appoint Antonio Salazar as police chief for the city of Las Vegas and enter into a professional contract. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you, Cassandra. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize Mr. Antonio Salazar, who is a member of our police department, who I am recommending to the council to be our next police chief. I know that in the most recent past, we've had some resignations and we've had people leaving our department. With the appointment of a new chief, we're looking forward to putting forward a very, very robust agenda for public safety in our community. This is an excellent opportunity. This is a good chance to put forward a robust law enforcement agenda for our community, to make things work, to make things happen in our community regarding public safety. When I'm talking about those initiatives, I'm talking about drug enforcement, I'm talking about narcotics enforcement. I'm talking about public safety as it relates to traffic and traffic safety. I'm talking about community policing, establishing a better rapport within the police department and the citizens of our community. I'm talking about the police getting active in our community with all kinds of civic events, football, basketball, wrestling, track, everything, as much as possible, to attend those games, to attend public events, to make the police department well-known and respected once again in our community. This is a good opportunity for the police department to put forth an agenda that will best serve the public and it will best serve the citizens of Las Vegas, New Mexico. This is a good opportunity to get a lot done. This is a new opportunity to move forward. This is a good opportunity for the police chief to get his team in order, to reorganize as he sees fit, to make sure that the best agenda and the best public safety is provided to our citizens. And with that, I'd like to ask the council for consideration to appoint Antonio Salazar as our next chief of police. And I'll leave it at the discretion of council, and I'll also entertain a motion to accept my appointment of Antonio Salazar as chief. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
First of all, Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming up with your appointment tonight. One thing I'd like to ask, I mean, just for clarification to the community, is there's been some concern as to why does the council not have any input? And I'll pose this question, or for clarification, Mr. Attorney, under the charter, what are the specifics for appointment to police chief?
Under our current charter, the mayor has the duty, he's the only person under the charter that has the duty of putting forth a name to the council. The council then has the duty to consider that individual, and upon the council's confirmation, the new police chief, whoever that might be, would basically be accepted and would become the new police chief. So to answer your question, I think what you're asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, the city council doesn't have any authority or power to come up with their own candidates. Was that what you were hitting?
Yes. Thank you.
Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, I don't know if you have to say something.
Just in regards to that I'd like to let the public know that I've been very open with the council. I've had the opportunity to invite the council to interview Mr. Salazar and to talk to Mr. Salazar regarding this appointment. So every council member up here has had a chance to vet and to communicate and to question Mr. Salazar. Dr. Rodriguez, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. And I know that Mr. Salazar is going to come before the council and kind of speak to his resume and his experience, and also I'm hoping he'll address some of the vision that he sees for Las Vegas for the public, because often, you know, the public gets a lot of the information either secondhand or through the newspaper, and sometimes they're at work and they may not have internet access to be able to watch the city council meetings. So we are trying to be as transparent as we can, but when it comes, I want the public to know that when it comes to personnel issues, we're abided by confidentiality. The only person that can speak to the newspaper or give that information is the person that it's affecting. And the council, the mayor, city employees cannot speak about personnel matters. So I know the public, I had been receiving, text and emails and Facebook about their concern in regards to replacement and appointment. But I do want to make this statement that as a city council and as a mayor, our priority is to the residents of Las Vegas. That's our priority. When we put money into a department, or we approve money for a department, when we approved, new vehicles for the police department, new computers, it was because we prioritized that as an issue for the community. And a lot of that is based on the residents contacting us. So it's not a surprise to residents. I mean, we listen to what they're saying. I wish more of them would contact us, in regards to their needs. But that's our sole purpose, is to address and improve the community. And, I'm new to this community. I mean, I came to this community in 2005, and I was appointed to this position. I didn't run for, the election. But I take a lot of pride in this community, and I take a priority for me as police enforcement. So when we get items to approve for the police department, I'm going to look at it, yes, but that's our priority, because police serve such an important role in our community. I live on the corner of 7th and Baca, and I constantly hear sirens going off. So you guys, you're always in the streets responding to emergencies. And I just want to know, I appreciate your role. And I believe the residents also, people may complain here and there, but at the end of the day, we want to be safe. And I feel very safe in this community because of the role that you're doing. So I do want to make that statement, and I want the public to know that we don't take this lightly. And we're not trying to hide anything. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. It's just that often our hands are tied when it comes to personnel issues, and that's confidential. We can't talk about those issues. That's why often we have to go into executive session. But we try to keep as much information, to the public, because it's your right. It's the residents' right to know this information. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Dr. Rodriguez.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr.
Before we get
Romero.
Antonio I was going to sit down. I just wanted to clarify, Antonio, I guess we'll ask you some questions here, but as we move forward, there's a big stigma in our community that you don't have enough experience, and I'm not being blunt, you don't have enough experience, you're too young. I know for a fact we have a young department, and that's been one of the biggest concerns, is that we need to do a better job as a council and mayor, is to continue to retain, our officers. And unfortunately, it's always having to do with funding. But one of the questions, I don't know if you're prepared, but I'd like to know, some of what your plans are. How do you convince us as to why you feel that you're fit for this position? And how you would address, because as we all are aware, there's morale issues within the PD, whether we like it or not. And it's not something new. There's always issues, but in order for those to ever get fixed, there has to be a plan. And I think as the years have gone by, all we've ever asked for is plans. And sometimes I know it's kept within the department, but not to the public or to us. Plans as far as drug enforcement, plans as far as speed enforcement. And I know, again, it falls to funding. But if you don't mind, here before us, if you could kind of maybe touch upon some of that stuff for consideration.
Yes, so as far as speaking on my experience and knowledge, I have I have over 14 years in this career, which includes corrections and law enforcement and policing. And as far as different plans, and I know the big emphasis is on community policing, relating more with the community, I do have plans to make our office and our officers, including myself, more available to the public. I plan on holding public forums, opening my door to the community, always open for anybody who wants to come in and speak on whatever issues or concerns, or just to have a sit-down conversation. And as far as the officers go, I mean, it has been said that this office is a young department, but the experience is definitely there. And I say this all the time, our 2-year officers, our 3-year officers are just as experienced, and I'm not being disrespectful to any other agency out there, are just as experienced as some 5 to 10-year officers in other agencies, just because of the amount of calls we deal with and the variety of calls that we deal with. And as far as the morale, I do believe that I can boost the morale. Again, just be, like the big word is, transparent. Be transparent with the council and be transparent with the public, and just ensure that my door is always open. And again, like I was saying, I do plan on having meetings with the public regularly. I want to utilize Facebook more. Social media, that's where social media is at. Everyone can see, especially now, this past 2 weeks. So I definitely want to utilize different avenues for the public to be able to relate to us and actually educate the public on what we do. And I don't think we've had that in the past, and I plan on bringing that to the police department. And not one person knows all the answers, and I'm not standing up here today and saying that, just because of this position now, all of a sudden I know all the answers. I do have people from the community who are highly respected in the community that I do talk to on a regular basis. One is Judge Montano, Judge Christian Montano. Him and I have a close relationship. So I do have a lot of mentors that I will seek out to. And again, I mean, not one person has all the answers, and I'm not going into this position thinking I have all the answers.
Could you talk a little bit about drug enforcement, Mr. Souza?
So as far as drug enforcement, currently we have 6 new positions. I would like to take 2 of those positions and make them into a supervisor for drug enforcement, a drug task force. So there will be 1 supervisor overseeing 2 agents who will also be under that drug enforcement task force. I plan on getting the region. So when that time comes, we'll be kind of ahead of the curve in that aspect as far as drugs. And their sole purpose is drug enforcement, is knowing, and we have talked, I was at the meeting the other day for the roundtable, and there are a lot of different avenues that we can do for treatment. And, like Major Padilla said, we're not going to arrest our way out of this, but I think the people, if anybody is going to be arrested, it should be the people who are supplying the drugs to our citizens of Las Vegas. I mean, those are the target areas, not so much, the people who can and are willing to receive treatment. But we're having a dedicated task force to narcotics, and also working alongside with the sheriff's office and the DA's office. I've spoke with them. We're already in the sheriff's office and Sheriff Lopez. We're already having we will have some meetings in the works here pretty soon. And as far as the DA's office, Investigations Division, and the DA, Tom Clayton, we've spoke as well, and we're actually on the same page already. So I plan on working with all of our outside agencies to better our community and hopefully rid our community just a little bit from this drug problem that we have.
Thank you. Any other questions?
One thing that I would like to see happen, since I've been in this position, is I hadn't seen a real good relationship between the chief of police and the OPTI. And I understand that as a chief of police, you have to keep a lot of information confidential and you can't give out information. But I'd like to see that improved, because right now, that's really the only news media that we have in getting out information to the public. Because not everybody is on social media
Correct.
or listen to the council meetings or the radio. So I'd like to see that developed, if that's a possibility.
Yes, and I think we'll definitely help with that, is just conversations with him. I mean, I don't know how it's been played out in the past, but I'm willing to sit down with Mr. Lowry and have those tough conversations and answer those tough questions that he has. Obviously, within the scope of the investigation and what we can allow to be released, but I think just basic conversation and sitting down and talking with him, I think will go a long way.
The other thing I'd like to also see is because my background is education, so, I come from I'm a strong supporter of education. I work for the university. And I believe the more educated you get or you receive, the better you can adapt to situations. It doesn't have to be formal. And my father was a very bright person, but well-read. He, only made it to the 3rd grade, but he read a lot. He was well-educated. So one thing I would also like to see is more requests for money into training, so your officers get much more training wherever you see, or wherever they say it's needed. And you have to just request that. As we said, we have to have this kind of conversation as far as what does the police department need, and whereas we as a council can help, to get that money to you so it's best for your officers.
One thing I do want to add, Mr. Salazar, is that I've served on council before. I don't believe this city council, I don't think it's ever happened in the history of Las Vegas that we've given so much funding to a police department, this governing body. And like I told you before, I know that there's officers that need active shooter vests. We need printers for their cars. We need training opportunities. We need whatever it is that your officers need. I know that you told me that you were going to do an assessment of all the equipment of what they need. Now is an excellent time to ask for those things, since we have a little spending cash. We have spent a lot on the police department recently, but we intend to spend even more. So don't be afraid to ask. I know that those vests are very important, especially now. It seems like for some reason you're responding to more crimes with guns, people with guns and so, or active shooters, or people, shooting at people. So we need those vests on our officers as soon as possible. So anything that can help you, any technology, printers for your vehicles, anything that can help your job and the officer's job better. Just please don't hesitate to ask. We may not always say yes. I'm going to tell you that for sure. But it's a good time to ask for whatever you need.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Mr. Woody?
Thank you. Mr.
Antonio, I've been here for 6 years as a city councilman. We funded the police department a lot. We do as much as we can to give them what they need. But I've been here almost 68 years in this little town. I've seen a lot of chief of police, a lot of policing. But you know what hurts in this little town? Our dogs. Our little kids. That hurts a lot. That means that the drug dealers are out there. They're hurting our families, they're hurting our citizens. And it's going to be a tough job. But you're young, they do it. You did ask us about your experience and this and that. But to me, I always give somebody a chance. Somebody that would give us info what's going on, what are the police officers are doing. Greet our citizens, We go out there and, there's a traffic stop or something, Sometimes they feel like being stopped for something that they didn't, that is supposed to be getting a ticket or anything like that. But, you know, they feel like they're mad or something, or they don't greet our citizens. And that's one thing that we gotta have respect for each other, for all of us. But, you know, I do think you could do a job, and, you know, I give you a lot of credit for putting never butt your name up, and, you know, thanks for coming up and telling us what you can do.
Thank you. And, sorry, Mr. Omar, I'll be right with you. I just want to say that we are moving forward with this drug enforcement. I'm going to push you on this. I'm going to push your department. And at the same time, I'm going to commit to the resources that you need, so that you won't come to me and say, well, we don't have this, or we can't afford this, or we don't have the personnel. You tell me what you need in your department to get the drugs off these streets, and get that 11-year-old that went to school with heroin the other day, to catch whoever's doing that, who's ruining our kids. I'm going to push you, I'm going to push the department, and we're going to make this happen. So just so you all know, I have a good audience with the officers here. This is something that's dear to my heart, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to move forward very fast with drug and drug enforcement, and mostly narcotic enforcement.
Mr. Romero? Mr. Mayor, I just want to kind of comment on something you mentioned earlier. You know, we could take credit, and administration can take credit, but a lot of the funding that the police department got this past year was because of COVID. Of course, you know, we've done what we can within our own means, but a big portion of this has been because of COVID. And I think that needs to be noted. You know, it wasn't, I can't take credit, the mayor can't take credit, no one can take credit for that, you know, but I guess, you know, maybe the senators in Congress, you know, can take credit for that, but we can't forget that part. But moving forward, you know, I know we have, you know, a lot of officers here tonight, and the position that we have here tonight is to try to move forward. And this is, you know, every single time it's hard. It's hard for all of us, you know, when you move from one chief to another chief and you still have doubts. But, you know, we have to make some type of decision, and that's always tough. But I want to make this comment to all you officers. I know you guys have the opportunity to move to state police and many other attractions, but I want to guarantee you, and I think my colleagues can agree with me, is that we're going to do the best that we can to make sure that, number one, you guys are in a safe environment. Number two, that the morale is as great as it can be. And number three, that we give you the tools that you need. And whatever happens here, you know, there's benefits of working here locally. Is, you know, you go work in Santa Fe, you know, are you going to be able to spend time with your kid, you know, spend time with your kids as they're growing up, and that's always tough. But, you know, give us the chance, no matter what happens here tonight, you know, that we're going to do the best that we can. You know, it's like I told the mayor the other day, is that we need to put our money where our mouth is. And, you know, a lot of people that criticize, well, you guys are always pumping into the police department, and I feel we still don't do enough. Yes, it takes a big portion of that, but I mean, how else do we keep our community safe if we don't, you know, invest for the right reasons? So no matter what happens here tonight, just, you know, stick with us. We got your back, and I know sometimes it seems like, you know, a year ago we went through this change, but I'm going to be honest, Mayor, and I mentioned to this, you know, I like to see progress, and sometimes that progress doesn't happen, and if you do get selected here tonight, you know, we expect that progress. If not, you know, we'll move forward and find someone that will, you know, and that's if, you know, if you do get approved here tonight. But I want to say that here publicly, that we want progress, and progress always comes from the top. You know, if, you know, you set as an example, you know, everybody, you know, below you looks up to you, and if that doesn't happen, then that causes a lot of problems. So just kind of understand where I stand, you know, that I expect progress, and we'll move from there.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, there were some more questions that I had, but I think it probably falls into more of a personnel.
Okay.
So at that time, I'd like to make a motion to enter executive session for, according to NMSA 10-15-A2 for personnel reasons.
15-1H4.
H4.
There's a motion on the floor to enter executive session by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
A second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero.
Yes.
Have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. We shall now enter executive session. Please recess, and we will call you back in as soon as we can. Rodriguez, second, please. Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Rodriguez, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council on the appointment?
I'd like to make a motion to approve to appoint Antonio Salazar as police chief for the city of Las Vegas.
There's a motion on the floor by...
Mr. Mayor, is that to enter into contract as well?
No, there'll be a
Okay.
separate,
Just
there'll be a
appointment.
separate vote
For
on
the
that.
appointment.
Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor by Dr. Rodriguez. Entertain a second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Rodriguez, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Congratulations, Mr. Salazar. Absolutely. The second order of business is to enter into a contract for Mr. Salazar, and I'll entertain a motion to enter into that working contract by the council.
I'd like to motion to into a contract with Antonio Salazar for police chief for professional services.
Thank you.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Dr. Rodriguez, a second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Rodriguez, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to present to you your new police chief, Mr. Antonio Salazar. Welcome, Mr. Salazar. I believe Judge Trujillo is here to swear you in so that you can take the oath. Welcome, Judge Trujillo.
Before I do this, Antonio Salazar took me back 28 years when I was appointed municipal court judge. And at the time, I was the youngest judge ever elected in the state or ever appointed, and subsequently elected as municipal court judge. So at that point in time, there were people that didn't believe I would do a good job as municipal court judge. Antonio, let that energize you. Let that show people that you're willing to take on this humongous task. And I will pray for you like I do pray for all police officers. I pray for you that you do a good job and that you make the tough decisions you're going to have to make. It's not always going to be good. It's going to be people that say, no, that's not what I want. But when you make a decision and you make it from your heart, you can't go wrong. I've talked to a lot of police officers. I've seen in 28 years a lot of police officers come and go. I've seen a lot of chiefs come and go. And when you take on this job, you take it on as a community. It's not just about Antonio Salazar anymore. It's going to be about your wife and your children, your relatives, your friends, your family, and then, of course, all of us. And so at 2 or 3 in the morning, I get calls from officers and wanting to know what do we do with this guy. I just picked him up on a warrant, and they say, sorry for waking you up, Judge. You know what, it's an honor that they can call me at any time and ask, Judge, what do you want to do with this person? And don't ever feel that you're bothering me. I'm here for you. I always have been. For people that came before you, people that have left, and people that are here today. When I took my oath of office, that's part of it. That's part of it, to make Las Vegas a safer and a more beautiful community. My brother, the mayor, between us, we have almost 60 nephews and nieces. Part of those are great nephews and nieces. We have an investment in this community, just like all of you do. Take ownership. Take ownership in this town. Take ownership in that street. When you go out, take ownership. Because when you do that, you have an investment in this community. Make it good. Make it good for yourself, for your families, and for all of us. I congratulate you, Antonio, for your age, because I'm no stranger to that. There were people that said no. But that was my motivation every day when I walked up those steps to the courthouse, to prove to these people that, yes, I'm going to do what I have to do, and I'm going to do what I have to do for my community. Did I make mistakes along the way? I sure did. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel, Mr. Salazar. There's people out there in your own department that have a wealth of experience. The New Mexico Municipal League, they have a chief association of chiefs that you can lend yourself to, and nobody will ever turn you down. Lean on those people, lean to make your decisions, lean on them, and they're going to steer you in the right direction, because all those guys are chiefs in their respective cities, and they're there for a reason. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I want to congratulate you again. I look forward to working with you and working with the Las Vegas Police Department. Sometimes the police officers aren't happy with my decision in court. Most of the time they are, but sometimes they are. And they leave from there knowing that they got a decision from me, and that was my decision at the point in time. And they respected me for that, and I respected them for what they do. At this time, I'll ask your wife and your son to come up. If you will hold the Bible, place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. I, Antonio Salazar,
I, Antonio Salazar,
having been appointed as Chief of Police
having been appointed as Chief of Police
for the City of Las Vegas,
for the City of Las Vegas,
New Mexico,
New Mexico,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will honor, defend, and obey
that I will honor, defend, and obey
the Constitution of the United States and its laws,
the Constitution of the United States and its laws,
the Constitution of the State of New Mexico
the Constitution of the State of New Mexico
and its laws,
and its laws,
the City of Las Vegas and its ordinances,
the City of Las Vegas and its ordinances,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of my office
of my office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability,
So help me God.
so help me God.
It's in your pocket.
Mr. Trujillo.
Counselor,
Any words, Antonio?
Congratulations.
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 So like I said, earlier, I have big plans. And I plan on doing a collaborative effort with everyone in the police department. We're not just going to do this alone, but we all have to do this together. And I didn't get an opportunity to say earlier, but I hold you guys on the pedestal. Like I was telling council, no disrespect to any other agency, but I hold you guys up on a pedestal. I wouldn't trade you guys for any other officers, but I hope to add more to you guys. I'm ready for the journey. I mean, if you guys are ready with me, I think we can take this place a long way. And I also thank you guys for your support.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Salazar. At this time, I'd like to invite the officers forward, whoever would like to take a picture with the new chief. If you'll just assemble over here and the chief in front, that would be great. You're all welcome. And thank you for being here.
And direction from the governing body regarding matters related to proposed charter amendments. We have our city attorney, Scott Aaron.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron, welcome. Thank you.
All right, Mayor and Council, a couple things I just wanted to bring to the council's attention regarding timing between now and probably December 1st, and then between now and, I guess, January, February of this coming year. I talked with Mr. Francisco Apodaca today regarding the Charter Commission. They're working on getting their stuff in writing so that they can get it to you guys. He expressed that they might need a little more time. I think time is, for these two issues I'm going to talk about, one is the charter, the proposed charter amendments, and the other one is going to be getting the census data and getting the charter requires the council to appoint a committee for redistricting, and then we've got to hire a private company to actually do the work. So those two different tracks, both the charter amendments and the redistricting, we're on a very short timeline for both of those. I've talked with Cassandra, and I've talked with Darlene in my office about getting the procurement process started, number one, for the attorney who needs to review the proposed charter amendments. We're not going to have a lot of time, and that attorney's going to be under some real strict timeline, especially the longer it takes for us to get the final version of the charter amendments to whoever that person's going to be. So we're getting that procurement process in order now so that we can get that attorney lined up so that when that person needs to get to work, we can pull the trigger and hopefully, I just don't want to stick that attorney with 2 or 3 days to review this stuff. I mean, they're going to need some time, and so we're going to try to fast track this. I'm going to ask, I asked this of the Charter Review Committee today, or at least of Mr. Apalaca, and I just encouraged him if he could get something in writing to you guys by at least that second meeting in August, second charter meeting, at least what they've got done to date. That way you can kind of see the direction it's headed. And then what I'm going to ask you guys to do as the counselors is to get something in writing in terms of what charter amendments you guys would like to see that perhaps the Charter Amendment Committee hasn't done. There's going to be some things that you may want individually to see changed, tweaked here and there that aren't recommended by the Charter Review Committee. But the reason why I'm saying both of you guys kind of start working on this, well, they've already been working on it, but we're going to have to reconcile their proposals with what you guys are looking to propose, and that reconciling those two things is going to take some time. Then it's got to go to the attorney for a final review. And we've got to have all this to Cassandra by December 1st. So as you can see, it may seem like we have a few months, but those months are going to go by very quickly, and I'm just concerned. We can't dump this on Cassandra later than December 1st. It's not going to make it onto the ballot, and then we're not going to have any charter amendments on the ballot. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to alert you to that. So if you guys have your specific items that you're interested in potentially going up for charter amendment votes, or to go on the ballot, if you guys could get those to me and I can start compiling lists so that you guys can see what the committee's recommending and then what each of you are recommending, and then we're going to have to reconcile what's going to go on the ballot. Ultimately, you guys make that decision what goes on the ballot.
What were those meetings that we attended worth? I mean, did they take our feedback? Was there somebody there that was noting what we had recommended?
The big ticket items, there's a couple of big ticket items. One of them is the runoff. I think they're recommending getting rid of that runoff for a couple of reasons. The other big one is adding more counselors. I don't know what that final number is going to be. You guys will have to figure out what that's going to be and how that's going to work out. Mm-hmm. Whatever, and here's the issue. We can't start the redistricting until we figure out from you guys how many counselors there's going to be based on the new charter. Or I should say, what the charter proposal that's going to go to the voters. Because we've got as you can see, these things are intertwined.
Can we, hold that thought. So at the next election, we'll still be functioning under the old charter?
Correct.
So if the voters approve the charter at the next election, then can we say that at the next election, we will include the other 6 members or 4 members or whatever?
You can do that, okay. That is correct, but I guess what needs to happen, what my understanding of what needs to happen is between now and ballot time, we need to be able to get the census data, which we don't have yet.
Yeah.
Appoint a committee, a redistricting committee, and then hire a private company to do the actual work. And that has to be done.
So the way it works is the charter says we have to have our redistricting done before the next election, which in our case, we won't be able to do we'll have to do it after the election so that we can incorporate how many counselors you want on that redistricting data. Because if it happens before, we're going to have to go back and do it one more time, and it's costly. So I would recommend, and I'll get with Scott, that maybe we do by resolution, I would say, is that we can wait after that election so that the voters can vote on the amendments, and if they do approve those additional people, or the additional counselors, then they can go ahead and redistrict.
Based on that.
Based on that, because if we do it prior to that, it's not going to work.
Exactly. That's my
We don't
point.
want-
And we're in a tough
Right.
situation because the charter says we're supposed to do it before the election. I don't know that, I don't see how we have time to do it. So we're trying to get these things worked out so that we're not violating the charter, but we're also just doing the best that we can under the circumstances.
Mr. Romero?
So Cassandra, I didn't think about this until now. So on these different amendments, they'll be listed individually to vote on? Each individual or the charter as a whole? And the reason why I say that is, let's say the charter, everything's great on the charter except for I vote on it, I don't want 8 members. So that one question can throw the whole charter out. So is that, I mean,
The way I understand it, normally it's done by each question is separate, each amendment,
yeah.
so that if the voters want something but they don't want something else. But I understand that our city attorney spoke to the league, and he said that we could either do one or the other, right? Put it as a whole or do it.
You could put the changes as a whole, in other words, is to take it or leave it for all of the items, or you can do them individually. Here's the issue we're going to run across, just so that you know it's coming ahead of time. If you do them individually, and they accept the first 3 and they kick out the last 5, your charter may at that point not be conducive, because there may be new amendments that conflict with older parts of the charter. So we're going to have to look closely at those things, and that's why I'm saying we're going to need time to do this so that we can get it to Cassandra by December 1st. This is not going to
So I
be an
think
easy
most of the
process.
items, everybody understands. I think that adding the council is going to be one of those questions that it could make or break the whole charter, but that's my opinion.
Or any one of those issues that they bring that's sort of touchy or confidential, I think it could break the
Maybe
whole.
we could, maybe those certain items, we could do them separate, instead of
you
don't
can
do all
write-
of them, because I think we all agree on, most of it, but those one items, I think those
I think,
are.
and we can look into that. You may be able to do a block for the ones that are a little less controversial, and then maybe do just one-offs for the ones that may take it or leave it. That may be a possibility, and we'll look into that.
That makes sense.
The other thing to consider in terms of making changes to the charter, I think the Charter Review Committee is looking at this. This may end up being one of their recommendations, whether it is or it isn't. The fact that the charter now requires you to put together a redistricting committee,
Yes.
the problem is we hire a private company to do all that anyway, so it's almost I don't know what, it's questionable what substantive role that committee serves other than just the timeline portion.
In the past, what's happened is a company will be hired to figure out the redistricting. They'll meet with an appointed committee to give the committee their findings. The committee's sort of just like a, thank you, we'll go with that. It's nothing to really a huge discussion, but the company will give the recommendation to the committee will discuss it and then say yes or no, or send it to the council. That's the way it's been done.
Well, in 2010, that was my first election, and it was a territorial charter that we had.
Yeah.
So the city clerk was in charge of it. So we actually hired a consultant.
Mhm.
And then we had to have the public hearings and follow that process. And so we didn't have a committee at all. But with the new charter, they added that in there.
And it may be worthwhile for the council to consider how they want
With
to do it.
this charter?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's the first time, this charter is the first time that there's been a requirement for a committee to be established. And it seems like the committee is kind of a middleman. So you might want that company who's going to be doing the actual heavy lifting to report directly to you. It just, for you guys' consideration, that's just something to think about. And the only reason I say that is because we get on these short timelines, and
Okay.
and when we throw committees in there, it makes it difficult.
Can the Charter Commission act as the committee for
I don't believe so.
redistricting?
The charter says that you have to appoint a separate committee.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you could part and parcel just renominate
them.
those people, but the charter committee may want to break after this. I don't know. You have to pique their interest and see.
Okay. Mr. Mayor? Yes, sir. Mr.
Going
Romero?
back at the time, I remember at the last redistricting, my father's side of the seat. And where I see the committee happening is that they were given like three options.
Correct.
Three different options. Like, I know one of the proposals was to cut the wards east and west, so that way every single council member would not only represent the west side, they'd represent both east and west. So that was one of the proposals. You know, it didn't work out, but I think maybe that's where the committee would come in hand, is based off of those, they might be able to give a recommendation, well, we think this is the best for whatever reason. And I know there were small pieces, small pieces based off of population that changed a little bit. You could use this square and move it here, so there was a few things, and I think that's, at one time, I know when Councilor Labrie, he was, in one area, but should have been in another area.
Oh, I remember that.
So just those little, just a small piece on that map, it actually put him in Ward 1 versus Ward 4. So those are the little things that the Charter Commission would be able to kind of find detail and kind of give a recommendation.
And there may be some legal challenges to having non-elected committee members make decisions and be able to just wholesale say, no, we don't want those two, but we want this one. Obviously, you guys can make that
The other
decision.
part is there's only one company, it's
Research
Brian
and
Sanderoff
polling.
is the only one that does that, so.
I believe there's one more, but I can't remember their name.
Because I know when I was at the schools, we used Brian Sanderoff also, so, it's slim pickings anyway, but. Thank you.
So what would be helpful for us, just to conceptualize the time frame, is if you could do a timeline, or what you would call the best ideal timeline. Like, from here to here, by this date, we need this, by this date, we need this, by this date, we submit this, by this, somewhere where we can conceptualize sort of like a diagram or a timeline, so that we know that we have to stay on track with everything. That would really help me in understanding the timeline. Is that something that might work?
I know that we've got to get this to Cassandra by December 1st regarding the charter amendments, but I know that as we get closer to Thanksgiving, people go on vacation and balls get dropped, so I don't want to sit on this. I kind of want to make sure that we're moving along and everybody knows that we're on a kind of a tight schedule.
Got you.
I have two questions. You're talking about when to bring the attorney in. Wouldn't the attorney have to address amendments prior to it going to the elected body? So you want that to be reconciled before we put it on the ballot?
There's two different ways that it can be done. The proposals that the charter committee makes can be reviewed by the attorney, and then it can go to you, to the council, and the council's going to mark that up, and then the attorney can review it a second time. So in other words, you're having him review it twice. Or the charter review committee proposals can come to the council. The council can decide, yes, we're keeping these, or no, we're not keeping this, or maybe you're going to add some more, and then the attorney does the final review.
Okay.
Whether the attorney reviews it once or twice is going to be kind of up to you. At $200 an hour,
Right.
you have to figure out what you want to spend. But just be prepared to make that decision is all I'm trying to say.
And then, for instance, if they recommend additional council people, and the public approves that amendment, then at that point, would we have to have a special election, or would the mayor just be able to appoint to those positions until the next election cycle? Does that make sense?
That does make sense, and that's not a question that we've previously considered. So I would have to sit down with Cassandra, and we'd have to find an answer to that.
I believe it would be at the next election.
I think that's my...
That's how it works, yes.
Yeah. That's my understanding.
So then, we're going on a redistricting that may not fall under, the residents won't fall under the previous council. So I would think that would be problematic. You couldn't wait unless the new districts don't go into play until that election cycle.
Yeah, it would have to be after, because that's what the voters would be voting on.
Right.
And you could put language into onto the ballot measure that says these will go into, they're anticipated to go into effect at a
2024.
certain point,
The
yes.
next municipal.
That way they know what they're voting on, they know what the timeline is, and people aren't under the...
But then your districts, you're not going to be putting your new districts into place until 2024 either.
That's my understanding, that we don't have time to do it before this March.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't.
So it would be.
Not this election, that's 2022. I'm talking about, if they say, okay, we want to add 3 additional city council members.
It would be 2024.
Okay. And so the representation doesn't go on, so we wouldn't be redoing our districts until 2024.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to be clear on that.
No,
So
the
our districts
redistricting,
remain the same until 2024?
they will not get redone before this spring.
Okay.
We just don't, we don't even have the census data yet.
That firm will have all that already, because I know there's other municipalities already working on district. I think Santa Fe or
It did-
Albuquerque is.
I don't believe it comes out till the middle of August, and then they have
Oh.
a separate one that comes out September 30th, so it's a little bit easier to read.
So we're going to be in a crunch. Okay, that's it. Anything else, Scott? Very well. Thank you so much for alerting us. Next order of business, Cassandra.
Adjournment?
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
I do, a second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help, Mr. Padilla, over the weekend. Appreciate it.